Welcome everyone to today's webinar. I'm Dr. Geoff Soloway. I'm the co-founder and Chief Training Officer at MindWell-U. Delighted to be hosting today's webinar with a special guest, Lyne Moussa, on exercising the mind for mental health in the workplace. It's a very special webinar because it's Mental Health Week. So we're doing our best to engage with this special week and the importance of, exercising our mind in order to create mental health. MindWell-U is delighted to host our webinar, and MindWell-U offers online and in-person evidence-based trainings in mindfulness for the workplace. We work right across Canada and into the States, making this available for large and small organizations. We've had a really special launch of our trainings in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. Just over the past couple days, we had even a webinar in French going out across all of the province this morning, and we're making our training, the 30-day mindfulness challenge, available to the whole population there, which we're really excited about. So it's a great example of utilizing this week for the good. Before we get started, I just want to name a few housekeeping items. First is that we are going to be sending you a recording of this webinar, so you'll be able to share it with your colleagues at a later time, or maybe people in your workplace. The other thing is that by registering in this webinar, you're going to get an access to take the 30-day mindfulness challenge. The 30-day mindfulness challenge is our online training that we make available for organizations, and it's evidence-based, and we'll be talking a little bit about that training a little bit on this webinar. Finally, I want to encourage your engagement. We've got two panelists to speak today, but really we want to engage you to ask questions via the chat. We're also going to put up some poll questions on your screen, which you'll see an example of in a moment. There's one. So please take the time to answer the poll questions, and if you have a question coming up, please put it in your little chat window. I'm going to do my best to respond to that question, ask Lyne that question in real time, but if it's better left to the end, we'll save it towards the end of the webinar and we'll ask it then. But really most important to get your feedback live and answer questions that are coming up for you. Great, so seeing about 50 people have taken the mindfulness challenge so far. So I'm going to introduce our special guest, Lyne Moussa, and Lyne is the Manager of Wellness, Safety, and Disability at Coast Capital Savings. She's an advocate for mental health in the workplace, and we're delighted to have Lyne with us today. Thank you, Lyne, so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Geoff, for having me.
Well, I'm going to just kick it off here by showing you a slide about the importance of mental exercise. And here's just a little slide about how we need to exercise our minds, because our minds are constantly going in lots of different directions, right? We try and stay focused on one specific item, but yet the mind can go in so many different directions. Think about when you start reading a page of a book, and you might get to the bottom of the page of the book and you have no idea what you just read. Or maybe you go onto your computer to go search for something. You open up a browser, you're searching something, and then 5 minutes later, you're like way on another topic. So our minds wander, and that's just an indication that we need to do something to strengthen that capacity for staying focused, staying in the present moment. And that's what mindfulness is all about. It's all about staying focused and staying in the present moment. And I just want to start today's webinar with a practice, because we're all coming to the webinar with already a busy morning, perhaps a busy day in front of us, and many of you are already familiar with the Take 5 practice. Take 5 is the practice that we teach on the 30-day mindfulness challenge, and it's our mindfulness in action practice. So here it is on the screen right now. So I'm going to invite you all to, close any other windows that you have open, any distractions, and see if you can just invite yourself to engage in this Take 5 practice. And I'm going to invite you now to bring your attention to maybe just bring it into your feet or maybe into your seat. Feel your feet touching the floor, maybe your bum on the chair if you're sitting. You could do the same thing if you're standing. Lift, pressing through the heels and lifting up through the spine. You're welcome to keep your eyes open, or you can close your eyes if you like. Just tuning into the sensations in the body, just whatever is present. There's no correct experience to get to. It's just tuning into those sensations that are arising in the body, because the body's in the present moment. And now let's bring our attention into our breath and see if we can take one complete breath here, noticing the inhale and noticing the exhale. And now let's see if we can lengthen and deepen that breath. So the inhale and the exhale are about 5 seconds. Now here comes the challenging part. See if you can take 5 breaths like that. So the inhale and the exhale counts as 1. Seeing if you can bring your attention and keep your attention with 5 breaths. Feeling the belly moving in and the belly moving out. Maybe you feel the chest rising, and the chest falling. Don't worry if the mind wanders. That's what minds do, right? That's just the nature of the mind. The important part is to exercise it. It's to bring it back. It's to notice when the mind has wandered and then bring it back into this moment. And as we come back into this moment, I'm going to ask you to notice now, the last step of take 5, notice now. Notice now with a sense of openness, a sense of non-judgment, a sense of curiosity. We often can come into situations and be judgmental, be closed. So mindset is a really important part of mindfulness practice. We're coming into the present moment and we're greeting the present moment with a sense of openness, a sense of patience, and a sense of non-judgment for both ourselves, the situation, and others. So this Take 5 practice, once again, is the core tool and the tool that we're training over 30 days at the 30-day mindfulness challenge. And we ask people to customize this practice so that they can just focus on one of those steps or maybe 2 of those steps. And each step could be the focal point of your practice. And what's important is for you to find what's going to work best for you, because you can take 5 when you're in the midst of a meeting, when you're having a difficult conversation. It could just be a moment to reground yourself, feel your feet, feel your breath, or even when you're just enjoying a cup of coffee or a conversation with a loved one. The application of mindfulness is widespread, both personal and professional. And what we do is we encourage people to learn how to customize that Take 5 practice for themselves as they go along the 30 days. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to welcome Lyne back in to the conversation, and I hope the practice helped prepare us for listening a little bit more attentively. And Lyne, can you give us a little bit more background about your experience in the workplace and the work you've been doing in mental health?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. So as manager of wellness, safety, and disability at Coast Capital Savings Credit Union, we are a credit union, and we've been delivering financial services to our members in our community for over 75 years. We have about 1,750 employees at this point, and it ebbs and flows, with 52 branches across BC. So my role is, as part of my role as manager of wellness, is to look at aggregate data to understand what our employees are dealing with from a health perspective. So examples of the data are prescription drugs dispensed, so looking at that aggregately, EAP usage, as well as our disabilities. So understanding what plagues us helps us focus our attention more deliberately to what is going to help our employees from a health perspective. And there's no doubt that as a subset of society, we face the same realities with the highest percentage of ailments being mental health issues. So we focused many of our efforts to reducing stigma and creating awareness and education around mental health. And that became a huge part of our strategy. So along with physical health and financial health being, of course, the area where we help our members, and of course our employees are members too. And physical health, well, we all get it, that exercise, nutrition, and sleep are imperative to overall health. But the data did point to mental health as an area where we need to really focus. It's elusive. And so the notion of mindfulness came to me at first from vendors. And I have to say that I bought into the myth that mindfulness is a practice that is associated with meditation, and it's like really being, yogic, that you have to be in the pose, and that's how you achieve mindfulness. But over time, I learned that that's not the case, that in fact, mindfulness is a mental fitness, same as physical fitness. It's just practicing. And the premise of it is really scientifically based. It is evidence-based, and it works. And it works, and where I really bought into it was understanding the whole background behind cognitive behavioral therapy and realizing that the foundation of mindfulness is based on that practice. So we sourced out various partners, and we partnered up with MindWell-U, and we launched our first practice just last month, and we just completed it, and I'll be sharing some of the feedback on that.
And that's great, Lynn. And, what is it, I know that you've been a real champion for mental health and supporting employees at Coast Capital as well as more broadly. And so now you've come into seeing mindfulness as a tool for cultivating mental health. And what have you learned about kind of this movement of mental health into the workplace, and why is mindfulness an important tool now?
Well, why now? I guess, why not now? Why now? Because now we realize with conviction that this is absolutely something that it's not going to stop, that the changes that are coming at us are not going to stop. So it's not a matter of, what we need to do is we just need to take stock of ourselves in terms of how are we going to handle the madness. I often say that the evolution of technology is the devolution of humanity. And so it's not about stopping at the technology. It's about really learning to build our resilience so that we can better handle what is coming at us. And no different than physical health, really, that we go out and we exercise in order to be stronger, to be able to take the physical hits, if you will, that are going to be coming at us.
Are you finding that people in the workplace are becoming more open and interested in mental health initiatives?
I think so. And I think that similar to my experience, where when you don't understand what it's about, then you're going to draw your own conclusions. So I think that when our intention when we launched it, I said, if we get a 20% participation rate, I will be overjoyed, because I know that our commitment to this is not an overnight fix. This is a commitment of time and conviction and belief that this is a good tool for people, and that as the word spreads more, there will be more uptake. And I still believe that. I have to say, we've only launched the first 30 days, but already there's a huge buzz of success around those who did participate, and that will infiltrate, and that will just bring other people on board.
Great. Well, maybe we can get into that a little bit more about your journey integrating mindfulness into Coast Capital, and what was that experience like, and any bumps along the road or barriers that you had to navigate? I'm sure there's a lot of other people in similar roles to you, and they'd love to learn from your experience.
Sure. So I guess the first thing is with any launch of any initiative, really, HR 101 says you have to get buy-in from above. And I'm really proud to say that getting buy-in from above with regards to anything mental health related was not a challenge. Our leaders are really hugely supportive. They get that our people are a primary resource and supporting them is imperative. So that was a load off for me, I have to say. But then it was making sure that we had the budget. And it's not to say that this breaks the budget by any means, but it's planning and it's having the foresight to say, okay, we're going to dedicate a certain amount towards launching the challenge and potentially other programs around that. And the other thing that's really important, I think, was getting a team together. So I partnered with members of our communications team who are just amazing and had brilliant ideas. And we really put a lot of effort into putting out teasers prior to rolling out the challenge. And that included onboarding some of our internal artists. We have some walls in our corporate head office that are dry erase walls. So we got them to go and just use their own imagination and create images of what this meant to them. And we used a tagline out of the challenge, which is flip the switch. And these are just examples of some of the artwork that was around our building, and it did create teasers. I know when we launched it, a lot of people were saying, oh, that's what that was all about. That was awesome. And so it caught their attention. So I think that the message there is build a team. You don't have to go at this alone. And there are a lot of people who are very interested and they come out of the woodwork when you put it out there, and they will be happy. They will be happy to participate and to be the champions of the program.
Let me jump in there for a sec, Lynn, because I think it's a really important point. Firstly, we have to say that, what we saw you do at Coast Capital was the gold standard. Getting this team on board and doing this type of initiative and this artwork to help spread the word and get people excited is really amazing to see, and really innovative for launching any initiative. And we're so grateful that you did it with the 30-day mindfulness challenge. And I think what your point around, there's a lot of people out there who are interested. They're closet mindfulness people who are interested. They've taken some mindfulness. So we really always try and leverage the assets that you have in your organization already, because there are going to be people who are already on board and want to help out and participate. And the funny thing about mindfulness is that once you've taken some training in mindfulness, you often get inspired and you want to share that type of training. So it's once they do it, they want to help get other people, bring them to the training as well.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point, Geoff. I often say when it comes to any wellness initiative, which I'm constantly sourcing and trying to figure when, how, who, I bring myself back to center with my own mindfulness and remind myself that there's always going to be people on the other side of the fence. When it comes to anything where we're taking accountability for our own health, it's simple, as you say in the challenge, but it's not easy. And so I remind myself that there's always the people sitting on the fence. There's people on the other side of the fence. There's people on my side of the fence, but there's always those fence sitters. And that's the audience that we want to target. Those are the people that are curious enough, but don't know how. They wonder, they wish, they want, but they just need a little bit of help, push, pull, tug. And that's just stay focused on that and know that we will have an impact when we bring them over. And there will always be people taking their space on the fence.
Well, that's really interesting. And I think it relates in some ways to this poll question that we just asked. We asked about what do you see as potential barriers to implementing mindfulness in your workplace? And the top answer that we got responses for was lack of interest, engagement from employees.
Yeah.
So that's, when I see that, I think, people think that there's going to be a lack of interest or engagement from employees. Mm-hmm. And my sense is that there's definitely going to be those people, that group of people that, aren't interested. You're not going to get their attention, but there's a pretty big middle ground of people who are curious. And I think that it's all about how you're framing it. And I think you've already alluded to it, that we're not asking people to go into a quiet room and close their eyes for 20 minutes and engage in a more intensive meditation practice. I don't doubt the value of that. I've practiced meditation for many years now. but with the mindfulness challenge, it's a bit of a simpler step bridge into the practice, whereas we're not asking them to do such an intensive practice. And it includes a buddy, and there's videos, and so we found that there's often quite a bit of interest and engagement from employees to participation.
We also did a pilot prior to, so it was an opportunity just to to sense what worked and what didn't work. And I think there was about 20 people who participated in that. And I remember going through the pilot myself thinking, oh boy, every day this is a lot of work. And we missed some of the days, and some of the days were amazing. But I have to tell you, when it was over for everybody said the same thing. Oh, I miss it. I need it back. And so that gave me the conviction that this is something good. And you know what? We don't have to, it's not about doing it 100% right at the outset. This is iterative. You don't go to a gym for a month and say, wow, I worked out for the month, I am fit. This is something that you do, and you repeat and you repeat and you repeat. And every time you do it, you gain a few more nuggets, and then you crave it and want to come back for more.
That's right. Mindfulness is a living practice, and you need to continue to do it. And that's why we offer annual licenses for organizations, because we want you to be able to utilize it over the whole year. And we recognize that when you first launch, there's going to be the early adopters, the people who jump on board right away, and then it snowballs, and there's conversations, and then there's new initiatives to get people on board, whether it's a teamwork, team building, or a leadership, or a mental health week. There's so many different ways to frame this type of training to try and draw in different populations. And as people become kind of normalized to this language and this literacy of mindfulness and Take 5 and the 30-day challenge over the course of a year, more and more people come and start to engage in the training. So it's a form of culture development, and we know that takes time.
Agreed. And the feedback has been tremendous from those who participated, and we know that this will spread. So if you bring up the next slide, we can share a bit of that.
That's about the pulse.
Yeah, and so I think that what we did midway through the challenge was we put out through our corporate bulletin just a little, how are you doing? Those of you on the challenge, how are you doing? And what are some takeaways that you'd like to share? And we have an internal recognition program where we can allocate some incentives. So we call it the hub, and we call those hub dollars. So we put out some hub dollars to those people who were willing to share with us, so that we can showcase what the feedback is. And the feedback was really impactful. And it's not just about the workplace. It was about taking it home and incorporating it, or being very self-aware in conversations with, in this case, the employee's husband, applying it when listening to your kids. And we believe and we know that employees come to work whole. They come to work as whole human beings. So what's good for them at home and sound for them at home walks through the door and comes in to work. So whether it's at work or at home, it's a practice that's applied, and the corporation feels the impact.
Thanks, Lynn. And you've been, it's great to see that it's starting to get launched and moving forward, and getting that type of feedback. We often see organizations taking feedback from individuals, creating little testimonials or videos, and then showing that internally, and getting it from senior leaders who have gone through the training, or just anybody who has gone through the training. We get little snippets into a little video, and then they use that as promotions for ongoing. And that's really a strong tool that we've seen used in the past.
That's right. And our intention is to do that for the next challenge that we're hoping and gearing to launch in July.
That's great. Yeah. So there's, in this whole conversation around mental health and Mental Health Week and framing mindfulness, we created this infographic that I'll share with you. Oh, that's not it. Here's my infographic, and sorry if there's a lot of content on the screen, but I'll walk you through it. And it's trying to say that in the early 1900s, education was just starting to become kind of a requirement and a formalized. So before that, there was no formal education. And then all of a sudden it happened. And I'm sure at that point there was a transition to, this is what, going to school. Wow, this is quite different. Before I was just working in the fields. And then, you fast forward a few years and you've got brushing your teeth, and all of a sudden we're being trained and educated about teeth brushing and this strange activity around putting this tool into our mouth and brushing our teeth. Like at some point that was pretty odd. Seatbelts came into existence in the 1960s. Today, you don't think twice about putting on your seatbelt. It's totally automatic behavior. You get into your car, you put on your seatbelt. But back in the 50s, like that didn't exist. It just didn't happen. Similar to physical fitness in the 70s. If you saw somebody running down the street, you quickly looked behind them and you tried to see who's chasing them. What's chasing them? But today, you see joggers going down the street, all the time, and it's totally normal because physical fitness has become well recognized and scientifically proven. Similar with bike helmets. Today, it's normal to wear your bike helmets, but we didn't wear bike helmets for a long time. I mean, hockey players never wore hockey helmets, and now concussion protocols is a huge issue because now we know better. And moving along the last end of that spectrum is mindfulness. Mindfulness has become pretty mainstream now. In 2010, there's all these research studies done on it, and we see it being integrated into medicine and healthcare. And what we are going towards is, by 2030, we say that mindfulness is going to be just as normalized as physical exercise. Mindfulness practices will be normalized just the same way that brushing our teeth is, wearing a seatbelt, wearing a bike helmet. This is going to be all part of everyday life because it's this new literacy that we're learning, and we're actually teaching in schools these days. We're teaching young children about the practices of mindfulness and how to be present and how to self-regulate. So just about the trajectory of mindfulness in our culture, and while it still might seem a little bit abnormal, we are on a path towards a very common, ubiquitous practice of mindfulness. And and we know that mindfulness, it's not just this passing fad. It's actually a steady trend that dates back thousands of years, actually, in contemplative traditions. That's where the roots of mindfulness practice come from. So it's been around a long time and trying to promote the health and mental health and well-being of human beings, and became secularized in North America in around the 70s and the 80s, and increasingly so through scientific research. And over the past 30 years, we've seen just thousands of studies done on the benefits of mindfulness training and the impacts on the brain. And there's now fMRI studies. So you look at imaging of the brain, and we can see that the brain actually changes in response to training. And we see different areas of the brain lighting up when we're practicing mindfulness, and we're moving out of this default mode of the brain, this automatic pilot mode, and more into the present moment, and bringing online our prefrontal cortex, and the part of the brain that helps us gain perspective and have self-awareness. And really, it's the part of the brain that makes us uniquely human. So that's a very important part of the brain. We're just learning how to exercise and how to train. It's just like there's an area of the brain that's responsible for math, and we didn't know that at one point, but now we recognize it, and now we're learning the areas that are important for mindfulness and for well-being, and learning how to integrate tools and practices into our daily life toward that end. Mm-hmm. Anything to share about what I just said there, Lynn?
Well, I think that there is nobody out there that would hear learning to be more present and learning to be more focused isn't something that they aspire for. We're bombarded. The other day I had this epiphany I'll share with you, and I was coming home and I had these, I don't know if people on the webinar can identify that when you go for a pedicure, you get these styrofoam little flip-flops if you don't have your own flip-flops, because you can't leave with wet toenails. And I had these in my car forever because I didn't know what to do with them. I thought, well, I can't give them back. I can't throw them out. And I didn't know what was causing me anxiety the other morning. And as I looked in my car and saw these sitting in the side pocket of my door, I just got more anxious, and I thought, these darn flip-flops, I don't know what to do with them. And, you know, we have Tetra Paks yelling at us on television and putting fear factor in us. We don't even realize that stress is coming at us and anxiety is coming at us from so many different directions because of the demands on us to do things so right. So that said, coming back to center, putting things into perspective, having that ability to just default to that and say, whoa, just hold on a minute, what's going on here, and be present. So I dealt with the flip-flops and I felt a lot better, but I had practiced my mindfulness. I came back, I noticed the new, I realized that I can do something about this and I don't have to hold on to them forever. And so that said, I do believe that everybody needs this, everybody wants this, they just don't know that they want it yet. So if you're worried about the engagement, if you believe in it and you get yourself to that place where it's absolute with every ounce of conviction, this is a good thing, then you will have all the confidence to just launch it and believe that it's a good thing for your people, and that slow and steady and iterative, they will embrace.
Mm. Thank you, Lynn. And we posted another poll about asking people where they are on their journey integrating mindfulness into your organization. And we had a high percentage of people saying they're just at the beginning steps of that. And, you know, if there's some people who'd like to share a little bit more about where they are and what their specific situation is, we'd love to hear from them. And if you have a specific question that you'd like to pose to Lynn or I, or just stimulate another comment, then you're welcome to just put it into the chat window that you see on your screen, and more than welcome to help discuss that. I wonder, Lynn, about, a bit broader around mental health. You know, you've been working in this field of mental health. What have you seen, change over the last 5 years? I'll give you both parts to it. You know, what are some of the bigger changes that you've seen in the field in the last 5 years, and where do you think we're going? In what direction? What do you see is coming down the road?
Well, from my own personal experience in terms of where I sit and when I go to conferences and I discuss with other colleagues in the same area of work, I realize that maybe it's not the same out there. But from where I sit, I see that there is a shift, that people are reaching out. I see our EAP usage go up. And to me, that's a wonderful thing because it means that people are reaching out for support. And they're not afraid to do so. We look at the percentage of male and female. This is data. When I say look at your aggregate data, ask for this information from your benefits providers. And then we see that there's a very slow and steady, that's primarily females that access EAP, but the male percentage is going up. And we have a very deliberate effort in terms of putting EAP posters and communication and support. So proactive life support systems, I think, is really important. And that also demonstrates to me that people are becoming more and more aware that there are services available to them, and they're asking the help for some help. I think that it's important to believe, in terms of working with our leaders, that one of the premises that I always come from is that, do you believe that this employee or that people want to come to work and do a good job? And without fail, it's a reminder that, yeah, I guess, yes, we all do. Nobody wants to come to work and not do well. So when that's not happening, then the onus is on us to explore that a little bit deeper. And when we do that, for one employee, you better believe that other employees are watching. And it creates this culture of trust in the organization, where slow and steady people feel more confident to come out sooner to ask for that help. So I see a shift that's a positive shift, and I would like to say that it's in part due to the efforts that we put forward, and so I will say well worth it. The other thing that I would say around speaking with people around mental health issues is to be really conscious of not using ourselves as the benchmark. Oftentimes our default is, well, I don't know why that upset them. I mean, I remember when and it becomes about me. And it's just a reminder that it's not about me. It's about the person in front of me who needs the help. And so when we recognize that, then we're more apt to be helpful. And then it's the proactive tools. So that's in the moment, but the proactive tools, the preemptive tools, such as mindfulness, for our people, I think is a trend that's going to continue, and it's growing. The more we talk about it, the more I talk about it at conferences, seminars, in networking events. I see a lot of people that are curious and want to know and that are interested, and I have a feeling that this is a movement.
It's just, it's some people say, oh, everybody's talking about mindfulness these days, and does it really do what it says it does, and is it, there's so much buzz around it. And I think it is important to acknowledge that it's not a cure-all for everything. It's not this panacea, but there's something fundamental to mindfulness as a core competency of a human being that has a fundamental benefit to us, and it's something fundamental that we can all tap into. So we all already experience mindfulness all the time, like we're already doing it, and often people are just learning how to frame it or put a language to it, to their experience that they have, because everybody knows the experience of watching the sunrise and just being there and being in that moment, or sharing a moment with a loved one, or listening to a child and just connecting in a moment of play with them, or just being in flow either on the sports field or in your work, connecting with a colleague. There's that intimate moment of everything is just here and now, and there's no noise, and that's what we're trying to facilitate with mindfulness, when there's ways to activate that part of our brains and bodies to experience that more often, because our lives around us are getting busier, and all these external things are actually having effects on our brains and our bodies, and they're inhibiting in our ability to just be in the moment, to just take things one moment at a time, and to appreciate these moments. And so we can't control the external world. We can't control the speed at which information is coming to us. But what we can control are these other tools that can help lift us up and help regulate our nervous system, so that we can rebalance and relax, not just be stressed out all the time.
Well, hearing you say that makes me think that it is a time management tool, and we talk about that actually. So we want to apply it directly in the workplace. It's a time management tool in the sense that there's so many distractions happening at work. There's the emails coming at us, the phones ringing, the people are walking past us. Many of us work in open concept environments, so there's that distraction. But when you apply the mindfulness practice, and you can remind yourself to say, you know what, I just have to get this done. You're just back to present, and it helps you focus on that one thing at a time, get her done, and move on. It's hugely empowering.
So we've got a question here about some of the data and some of the results from your initial pilot here, Lyne. Asked about how many people were part of your first cohort. How many people were part of your first cohort that went through the challenge? Did you ask for volunteers or do it by teams? And then how many completed the challenge?
Okay, we have 480, so we were over I was at, I think, a 24% participation rate, which I was thrilled about. I said 20 is what I want and I'll be happy. And then of those, there were about 80, I can't remember the numbers, but there was about 85 who invited a buddy to participate with them. And that is part of the program, is that when we subscribe to it, all employees can participate, and every employee can ask someone outside of the company to participate as a buddy, because we know that when it comes to anything health and well-being, when you partner up with someone, you support each other, and greater chance of success there. And I haven't looked at the challenge, just closed, but I did scan the data in terms of the feedback that is collected within the MindWell-U portal. And it's all absolutely positive. We're all in the 97 and 95% in terms of I achieved this, that, and the other, which is what the intention is. So I achieve more calm, I'm able to focus, I embrace the challenge, whatever the questions are. It was all very positive, and I've yet to compile all that and then put something together to present so that we can engage more people for the next round.
It's worth just noting for people two things. One is that you get access to an HR dashboard. So as you go through it, it's in the chat window now about you get access to live data that's coming in. And we asked 2 surveys as participants are going through the challenge. And all that data goes to this HR dashboard that Lyne would have access to, or you at your organization would have access to, so that you can continue to see over the course of the year how many people are engaging, where they are, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can share that with the people that you need to report to. So you can use it as your reference point in building your case study or your business case for the benefits of the challenge.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, to that point, because privacy is so important for people, and there's often a lot of scrutiny or maybe suspicion around, you know, what is this information going to be used for, and how much is the company going to get, and are they going to know? So full disclosure, when we presented it in big red bold, it was really clear that providing your email and phone number in this challenge is for the sole use of being able to send you the daily information and the daily challenge, and will not be used in any other way. And furthermore, the only data collected is in aggregate for the company. And we only put in, my choice this time around was to put in the demographic sort of breakdown when you choose, you know, who are you, when you fill in your profile when you start, was just to distinguish between admin and branch. And that was it. We could have broken it down further to get a little bit more insight, but I thought, you know, that's not the point. The purpose is just to help people, is to engage people with this resilience tool. That's the purpose. It would be interesting to see if there was more people at admin versus frontline, but that's enough. We don't need to know more. And it was actually a 50-50 split. So that was interesting. So depending on the size of your organization, you can break it down and get a little bit more insight as to, you know, who's using and who's not.
Mm-hmm. The demographic information.
That's right.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. If anybody has any further questions, don't hesitate to ask. I was going to show a video here, but I've got a question that's coming in. Once you complete the 30-day challenge with your company, do employees have the opportunity to complete it again every year, every month?
Yeah, I was really happy with that. The portal, okay, so you're going to have to correct me, and let's see if I got this right. That the actual portal, we have access to it for a year, and the actual portal will remain open to those who have engaged in the first challenge, so they can keep going back to it. And we can create a new challenge with a new start date to get more people on. The previous people can subscribe to that. They can register for that as well. But the goal is to get new people on it. And then once they're on, they have access to it for the duration of our contract for the year.
That's right. And people can take it as many times as they want over the course of the year. So, and every time they start again, they could invite a new buddy. And there's lots of different ways to start a cohort. You can create your own cohorts, or you can have a weekly start date so that it's not like an on-demand. People can always go there and start. And we often see some people go back and doing it over and over again, because sometimes they start and life happens, and then they have to start again, or they want to start again, or they've done it and they just want to keep it going in their life. And so they want to do it again in that way.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing, is they just want to keep doing it.
So in the spirit of Mental Health Week and our focus for today of exercising the mind, I want to share with you one video. It's about 2 minutes about the importance of practice.
Mindfulness training is like training at the gym. It requires regular practice to be able to see change and experience the benefits. Based in neuroscience, mindfulness training regulates attention and emotion and positively influences brain structure and function. The 30-day challenge is an opportunity for a daily workout. We will regularly insert practice moments into our busy days and integrate these new habits into our lives. The challenge helps develop new habits and hardwire pathways in the brain that reduce stress, improve focus and performance, and enhance teamwork and communications. It might be possible to notice change right after a Take 5, such as feeling more calm or less stressed. The effects are cumulative, meaning every minute of practice is like money in the bank. It all counts, so the more we put in, the greater the return. That's why the 30-day challenge will set up opportunities to disrupt daily routines and build positive pathways, so it will be easier to get into the zone and stay there longer. Neuroscience teaches us that neurons that fire together, wire together. This means that when we habitually make certain associations or connections in our brains, they become stronger each time. It doesn't matter if they're positive or negative. We'll be working on these connections, developing more positive pathways, and trying to stop reinforcing pathways that take us out of the zone. See, we can train ourselves to stay calm, be highly focused, and feel more joy.
So there's our little video on the importance of practice and a few tips about how to start a mindfulness practice. If you're new, try it. It's important first step. And try it doesn't mean reading about it or reading a book. It means the actual practice. So mindfulness is experiential. It needs to be learned by doing it, by feeling your feet, your seat, finding your breath for a few moments and bringing that wandering attention back, adopting a mindset of non-judgment, openness, and patience. That's the practice part. And we need to try doing that in small ways. Which is our second step. Start small. You might go on to a 10-day silent meditation retreat. Jump into that. If that's your interest, then go for it. But you can dial it back quite a bit and start small. And start with a Take 5 practice, and start in the midst of in your everyday life by just enjoying your cup of coffee in the morning. Where were you when you had your cup of coffee or your tea in the morning or your shake? Were you present for that whole drink, or were you doing something else as you were busy moving along? And doing something as simple as just enjoying your morning drink with full awareness can be a mindfulness practice and a great way to start the day. The importance of practice, we've just saw a video about the importance of reinforcing those neuroplastic changes in the brain is critical. Hardwiring happiness, that mindfulness is really good for dealing with things that are difficult and challenging, but it's also great for hardwiring the positive in our brains. So when we notice things that go right, can we spend a few more moments, like 10, 20 seconds, just noticing the positive? Because so often we might have a moment of joy, we feel a hit of happiness, but then we quickly move on. So can we just extend that, those moments of joy in our life? And the final is to use cues as a reminder. And on the 30-day mindfulness challenge, we drop cues in your day to remind you to do this Take 5 practice. Things that everyday thing, brushing your teeth, drinking coffee, walking, having a conversation, checking email. These are all things to help remind you to practice mindfulness, because the most difficult part about being mindful is remembering to do it. So we need to remind ourselves. That's another way of actually understanding what mindfulness is remembering. So I'm really grateful to Lynn. I'm going to bring it back to her in just a moment. I'm going to do a quick wrap up, and Lynn, then I'll give you a final word here before we sign off. But just want to tell everybody who's on our webinar that we are going to be sending you a recording of today's webinar in a few days. And with that link will be an invitation to trial the 30-day mindfulness challenge if you haven't done so already. Perhaps this resource or another resource that we have on our website, MindWell-U.com, wellness, then we'll put it in the chat window here. There's lots of different resources that we make available for free for Mental Health Week. So maybe something like that you can pass around to your organization for the benefit of everyone. And just want to do a shout out to the team at MindWell-U as well. specifically Katie and Anne for all their hard work, spreading the word about our webinars and getting it out there. That's most important work, is getting the word out there and helping to spread the word. So greatly appreciate all the efforts that they put in on a daily basis and helping to reach a broader audience.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing it back to you, Lynn, what's one message you want to leave people with on Mental Health Week?
Oh, I want to say that kudos to you for attending the webinar. You're curious enough to be here. Believe with every ounce of your gut that this is a good move. It's a right move. It's a positive move. The world is getting more sedentary physically and mentally. And this is not any different than saying we need to move physically. Well, we need to recenter mentally for our salvation. So forge ahead. And of note, with my experience with MindWell-U, one thing that gave me a huge sigh of relief was the amount of materials that you have prepared for us in terms of everything from messaging for leaders to staff to posters to, it just really made it a lot easier to take this and work with my team of champions and pick and choose what we're going to apply. So that was a huge boost.
Thank you, Lynn, so much for sharing that and for continuing to all the great work. We're really excited to continue to launch this across Coast Capital and see them as a leader in the field. So thank you once again. Thank you to everybody. Have a great Mental Health Week, a great, wonderful day. Thanks for joining us. See you again soon. I should mention we've got a lot of webinars coming up. I almost forgot. We've got a lot of webinars coming up this month. One on addictions, that I'm sure we're going to put a post up on the chat window where you can see what's coming up. There it is right there, mindwellu.com/webinars. We've got one on addictions coming up. We've got around mindfulness, around mindfulness and sex coming up in early May with a professor at UBC who does research in that topic, which should be pretty interesting. As well as more mindfulness in the workplace coming up. So a lot of different webinars. It seems to be a busy time for that, but that's great because we love to share different perspectives that are, and people who want to share their perspectives on different topics related to mindfulness. Have a wonderful day. Look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Geoff.